Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks for setting me up, Dr. Shitu. So like Dr. Shitu said, just going to give a quick rundown of my experience at GW, how that set me up for success in the 3 years that I've been in the real world. So graduated from GW in 2014, studied systems engineering and economics. And so the progression here is actually a little bit out of order. So I'm right now at Customer First Renewables. We work with large energy end users, so that's businesses, universities, to create sustainability and renewable energy strategies, and then find and sign contracts for projects like the example Dr. Shitu was just walking through. So the way I found out about CFR is actually they helped GW with a project. So in 2014, it was GW, the hospital, and American partnered together on a solar project in North Carolina. GW is now, I don't know if you're aware, getting half of their electricity from a solar project. But anyway, so that was announced right around the time I was graduating. I'd been involved with Green GW while I was a student here. They put me in touch with CFR. At that point, they were only about 5 strong and didn't need anybody else. So I went to FedEx Ground, where I worked in operations research. And there I was responsible for planning the future capacity expansion of 123 smaller distribution centers and hubs around the southern U.S. So as sort of a systems engineering or optimization nerd, it was pretty great to get the real world experience of how sort of one of the main examples of how network optimization is done, how they actually do that in the real world. So had a great experience there, but stayed in touch with CFR throughout the year that I was at FedEx. And as soon as CFR needed somebody else, moved back down to DC, and I've been at CFR for 2 years since then. So this is just sort of a standard about the business slide. Won't get into too much of the details, not particularly interesting, but CFR was founded in 2010 by 2 former partners at McKinsey in their energy practice. So it really, as systems engineering students, consulting is one of the areas that I am now in and that a lot of systems grads end up in.
Sorry, we had to improvise here.
So when you see the McKinsey name, even if it's just applying to jobs or internships there, or working with people who spent time leading practices at McKinsey, definitely should be high on your list. It's pretty tough to beat the reputation and just the experience that you get working at or with the company. But anyway, so the core capabilities that CFR offers down in this bottom left section of the slide really span the entire power market and the entire renewables space within the power market. So as that's relevant to systems, it's a really great opportunity to work with sort of the just systems thinking and systems mindset in general, to apply a lot of different skills to what may seem like a simple project, which is just finding a renewable project for a customer to get the energy from. But it's really multidisciplinary and is a great way to apply a lot of the different skills that the systems degree gives you. Bottom right here, some of the clients that CFR has worked with: Lockheed, the Army, MIT, GW, Caltech, just to name a few. And what you realize working with companies and organizations that are sort of the leaders in their respective spaces is that if you don't have both the analytical and soft skills to provide the service that they expect and that they're used to, and offer sort of the cutting edge final project recommendations, they really aren't going to listen or open the door for you. And I found that the balance of a systems degree really is something that is valuable in providing that. So the main goals that I think we were hoping to get out of today is just showing how some of the classes that the systems curriculum covers, how those are relevant to my day-to-day job now. So just three big ones. The first one is project management. So you find pretty quickly that corporate and university clients have aggressive goals, not just as they relate to sustainability, but across the board. So even though they may be lofty goals that would seem to need to take a long time to meet, that's not often the case. You have short time frames. Just as an example, we'll get to it on some further slides. CFR is working with one of the sort of big three banks in the U.S. right now. They don't have really any sustainable or any renewable energy to speak of right now, but their goal is to be completely carbon neutral by 2020. So that's an aggressive goal. So that having the ability to create realistic but still aggressive project management and scheduling timelines is a must. And the project management class, you guys are all what, seniors, juniors, mostly? Okay, so these are all, trying to remember when I took them. So project management, I think you should have all taken. Very key to really any job where you're not just going to be working on completely technical tasks from day to day. Next is cash flow modeling. What Dr. Shitu was starting to get into is huge. It is something that I spend a ton of time on from just day to day, client to client. And so I think, as you guys will see in the case study, and as one of my examples here is going to show, the cash flow modeling itself isn't that complicated, but power purchase agreement, which is the mechanism that companies use to buy the electricity that comes out of a renewable project. They're 20 to 25-year contracts usually, and are pretty frequently worth $100 million or more just over the total contract value. So the need to create accurate models, as simple as the mechanics underlying them are, is a must. And then finally is probabilistic modeling. So one of the ways that we at CFR help to build client confidence is through Monte Carlo simulations of just the range of what market electric prices will do over a 25-year PPA. And this is really the biggest way to increase your client's confidence and just sort of prove your analytical and technical capabilities. So again, three pretty perfect matches from the systems curriculum. And obviously the broader curriculum is also very relevant to me. These are just three of the big examples. But the one thing that I found going to work in consulting without a graduate degree is that really pretty much everybody else I work with who has business degrees, who went to MBA programs, they needed those grad degrees to gain these skills. And you all are going to have them from day one, which is huge, to just be able to make an impact right out of the gate and contribute in a meaningful way. So, first example, project management, that bank that I mentioned a minute ago. This is the schedule that we have for them to meet their 2020 renewable energy goal. So each of the different colored rows here are the different supply options that we're going to bring together to meet the goal. Without a background in project management or experience building these, it pretty quickly becomes overwhelming to look at. But you can see with the background that we all have, it was being able to sort of take their complicated multiple goals that all feed into the one bigger sustainability goal and boil that down into a coherent, logical timeline that is aggressive but still will be able to be met is key. And again, that is something that I was able to help make and really had no discomfort seeing this, even as others on the team or just the client themselves really had to take some time to get comfortable with this and understand the structure of it. This is a pretty perfect example of what you guys will be working on with this case study. This was actually just something that we put together in a meeting last week with a project developer. So I condensed most of the years of its solar project in upstate New York. Basically, the conversation we were having is what PPA price would the developer need to get to break even on their project investment. So do you think it's worth getting into the...
They know it.
Okay.
Is there anything on this that is weird to you guys? So they do understand the annual cash flows, right? There is a spot for revenues, expenses, and then you have your net. I think this is all revenue, right? And right there you have the net present value. So if I may ask you, class, when it solves to get a net present value of 0, if its decision variable were the rate of interest, what would you call that rate of interest? Make it loud, you're on camera.
Internal rate of return.
The internal rate of return. So in this case, this is the break-even PPA. That's the power purchase agreement rate. So you can see the similarities. I mean, tell me you see this day one on the job. You're going to freak out? Of course not. Please continue.
All right. Yeah, and so I guess the only addition is so the market prices here are what the project would be getting from selling the power into the New York electric market. And then the PPA cost is what the customer would be paying for each of those megawatt hours that the project produces. So, and then again, just straight out of this class, a sensitivity table just showing how the PPA price performs under, or sorry, how the NPV performs under a range of PPA prices. Not to beat up on MBAs too much, but also shortly after this meeting, we were talking about a few job applicants who we've been interviewing, and their lack of understanding of NPVs and cash flow modeling, and multiple people in that conversation were saying that they had no idea what an NPV was until they were pretty far along in business school. So just another example of you guys are way ahead of the curve in really relevant areas to really any job that's going to be working on business decisions or the market implications of them. So final example here is how we use Monte Carlo and other probabilistic modeling to help customers get comfortable with the project recommendations that we make. So you can see each row here is a different finalist project that the customer was considering. They're all wind projects in different markets around the US. So without getting too into the weeds, the difference in colors between the blue and green is just where the project would be selling the energy into the market. So for this top row, you can see that this line is $0 NPV. So the top project here is really low risk, essentially close to a 100% probability that, based on the modeling that we did, that the customer would end up with cost savings over the life of the project, which is, I should have said this from the beginning, which is huge for most businesses and really anyone other than some of the big universities. If a renewable project isn't going to save them money over the long run, the sustainability aspect of it is nice, but they're not going to move forward unless they're saving money. So that's all to say that the top two projects here meet that goal very well. And then you can see the bottom row here has about 10% of the simulation runs ended up in NPV below 0. And so this is really where, again, we prove our capabilities to the client, but more than that, it's a really effective way to show complex modeling in a way that is easily digestible and really gives confidence to the customer and allows them to know that the decision they're going to make is going to be a good one and is backed up with a lot of analytical rigor. And again, just something that you guys from the gate will be able to provide. So with that, some general advice other than just, work hard, do well in classes. Big things that have helped me is just taking advantage of the resources that the systems program and the engineering school more generally provide. Really get to know your professors. It's worthwhile in class and just worthwhile in the long run, building relationships with them. But as you get into the job search and into the real world, the introductions that they can help make for you are huge. And also just the advice and perspective they can provide when you're actually considering different offers is also pretty invaluable. One thing also is just make sure that you sort of keep the class projects that you work on top of mind on resumes and in job interviews. I've found that they're really useful to be able to talk about in job interviews. One of the projects we worked on in my project management class was redesigning the FEMA registration process for natural disaster survivors, and came up in multiple interviews. Obviously, the senior design projects you're either working on or going to be working on. Definitely know what you're doing there. It's not a very good look if an interview asks about something you've been working on for a year and you have to sort of stumble and try to remember the specifics of what the project was. And then finally, remember some of Dr. Mizuki's advice that he gave to me. Once you get an offer, when you're negotiating salary, benefits, you can't get what you don't ask for. I know a lot of the time it's sort of a company gave you an offer and you have to take it or else they won't want you to work for them. The opposite is true, especially with the skills that you all are going to have when you graduate. You are a very, very valuable asset to any company. So obviously they want you enough to have made an offer. The worst that can happen is if you ask for something is they say no, or they meet you halfway and you still work there. So really no harm in asking for what you want. So with that, any questions? Anything else?
Questions? Ask your questions. Be free. Sydney, any questions?
I always have questions. So when you're talking about your projects and things like that in interviews, what did you find was like the most effective aspect that they were interested in? The research you put into it, the way you built it, or the outcome?
The outcome partially, but really just sort of the process that you took. sort of, as an example, one of the resumes that I was looking at recently, the guy listed his group project experience as going to the library and working. So just being able to give examples of how you worked on a team, how, if it wasn't just purely a systems class, how you were able to use some project management or just whatever different aspects of the systems curriculum that are really relevant to a day-to-day consulting or client or just any sort of business project. That's really important, just to prove that you can work with other people more than anything. Yeah.
So on that topic about how many projects do you keep on your resume? On that in interviews, I never really know how.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know, if 4 works and you can still get everything else in there, sure, but 1 or 2 probably, and you can swap them out depending on what the specific job is. Really, in terms of bringing the projects up in interviews, I've found that looking at other people's resumes now that I don't have to be the one getting interviewed, it's really pretty obvious once you read the resume what sort of match the person will be, or just what their likelihood of being a good candidate is. And in interviews, really, the specific things on the resume come up pretty infrequently, and it's more just, at least I just have more of a conversation. So if you can make the projects and the outcomes and whatever you want to share from them clear in your resume, I wouldn't really worry about whether or not they come up in an interview. Yeah.
Room for one more question. Aaron, anyone? Matic? Oh, Sydney again.
I was wondering, besides the classes that you mentioned, which maybe some of the classes we take that are in the systems curriculum but not the EMSC classes, you thought were most effective to helping you when you moved into the railroad center?
Yeah. That it's a little bit tough for me to answer that. So I was a double major in econ, so really all of my non-systems classes were econ classes. That said, just sort of the general micro and macro econ classes that I think are part of the curriculum, those are huge, just to give you more context of how the market for anything, energy, iPhones, whatever, works. So those are really important. But really, the classes that I liked the most that weren't systems classes were really just the electives that I took. It's definitely easy to get sort of stuck in a specific track. And I wish I would have taken a few more just classes that I was interested in. So definitely, if you see something that may not be super relevant to the major or to a minor, but that is relevant to your interest, or just something that you think will be valuable in the future and you can fit it into your schedule, I would definitely recommend taking those. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
And you touched on this a little bit. You said the phrase analytical and soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expound on that? Because a lot of times recruiters say that in a information session,
Mm-hmm.
and students don't really think about, okay, what are those soft skills? What are you looking for?
Yeah. So, I mean, really just knowing how to give a presentation, knowing how to take whatever analysis or modeling you've done and explain it to someone who doesn't have a technical background, but who's going to be making the ultimate decision on a project. So those are the biggest things, I would say. And the other that is what I liked about systems specifically was that, when I first started at GW, I was in mechanical. And so working on projects with other kids in the mechanical program, they had great ideas, but that weren't realistic or couldn't be done in the real world. So systems, the curriculum and also just the systems thinking mindset really puts you in a good position to think analytically and understand the analytical sides of anything, but still have a grounding in reality and a grounding in what the actual business thinking will ultimately be. Mm-hmm.
Very much. What do we give to our guest speaker? Thank you so much.